I walked into the big law office, my heart beating fast. The air felt heavy. My parents were already sitting there, both of them smiling like they had already won. My father, Jacob, leaned back in his chair with his arms crossed. He looked sure of himself, like he knew what was coming. My mother, Kelly, looked at me with that same cold look she always gave me. She had never treated me like I mattered. I was the child they never wanted, the daughter who never made them proud. But I didn't care. Today wasn't about them. Today was about my Aunt Lauren. Lauren was the only one who had ever shown me love. When my parents laughed at my dreams or told me I wasn't good enough, Lauren was the one who believed in me. She always said, "Danielle, you have something they'll never understand, a kind heart." Now I stood there, watching the same people who had always looked down on me act like they deserved everything Lauren owned. The lawyer, an older man with glasses, cleared his throat and moved some papers around. "Let's begin. As you know, Miss Lauren had gathered a large amount of wealth. Her total assets were around $20 million. My father grinned and gave my mother a nudge. "I told you, Kelly. It's ours." I felt a lump in my throat. I knew they never truly cared about Lauren. They only kept her around because of her money. And now they were sure they were going to get it all. The lawyer fixed his glasses and said, "Before we go further, I need to read a personal letter from Miss Lauren." He opened a folded piece of paper and started reading. "To my dear niece, Danielle." My mother let out a loud sigh. "Oh, please." The lawyer glanced at her, but kept reading. "I have watched you grow into a strong, kind, and honest woman. I've always admired you, even when others did not. I made my choice long ago, and I have no regrets. My money is not for those who choose greed over love. My fortune will go to the only person I trust to use it well, Danielle." Silence filled the room. It was so quiet it felt hard to breathe. Then my father jumped up from his seat, his face turning red with anger. "What?" he shouted. My mother gasped and grabbed the arms of her chair like she might fall. This must be a mistake." I sat there, not moving. Did I really hear that right? Lauren left everything to me? Before I could think, my father reached across the table and grabbed my wrist. His nails dug into my skin. "You ungrateful brat," he growled. "This was supposed to be ours." Tears filled my eyes, but I refused to cry. He pulled me out of my seat and shoved me toward the door. "You think you deserve this?" he yelled, his voice shaking with rage. "You're just a foolish girl. You wouldn't even know what to do with that kind of money." "Jacob, stop it," the lawyer said firmly. But my father didn't listen. He held me by the shoulders, his grip tight, and then did something I never thought he would. He threw me out, right there, in front of everyone. I stumbled and almost fell on the cold marble floor. People gasped. Even my mother looked shocked. But she didn't try to stop him. Then he said, in the cruelest voice, "You are nothing without us." The lawyer's voice cut through the tension, sharp and serious. "Mr. Jacob, I suggest you sit down before you do something you'll regret." I looked up, my eyes blurry with tears that hadn't fallen. But I wasn't broken. I wasn't weak. I was finished with them. They had no idea what was coming. I took a deep breath and stood tall, swallowing the lump in my throat. My father's words rang in my ears, but they no longer had power over me. The lawyer cleared his throat again and looked straight at my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Paul, I strongly suggest you calm down. There's more in this will you need to hear." My father let out a bitter laugh. "More? What more could there possibly be?" His face was still red. His fists were clenched by his sides. He looked like someone who had just been robbed in the middle of the day. The lawyer gave him a look filled with disappointment, then kept going. "Miss Lauren knew this might happen. She knew how you would react, Mr. Paul, and she left one final message." He picked up another page and read in a calm, steady voice. "To Jacob and Kelly Paul, I know you came here thinking you could take something you never earned. I know your greed has no limits. That's why I've left you exactly what you deserve. Nothing." My mother gasped. My father looked like someone had slapped him. "But we're her family," my mother said, her voice shaking. The The lawyer didn't respond. He just kept reading. Also, I made sure that neither of you can fight this will. If you try to, every single dollar will go to charity, and you will not get a single penny. That was it. The final blow. My parents fell back into their chairs. All the color drained from their faces. My father opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I took a deep breath and stood up tall. For the first time, I wasn't the one being hurt by them. I faced them and said clearly, "You always told me I was nothing, that I didn't matter. But look at this. I'm the one Aunt Lauren trusted, not you." My father jumped up again, his hands shaking with anger. "You little." "That's enough," the lawyer said, standing up. "Mr. Paul, if you can't behave, I'll have to ask you to leave." For once, my father said nothing. I turned toward the door. Just before I stepped out, I looked back. My father wasn't sneering anymore. My mother's proud face had fallen. They didn't look powerful now. They just looked like two greedy, empty people who had lost everything. And for the first time, I walked away knowing I didn't owe them anything. I stepped out of the law office, my breathing shaky but steady. My father's angry words, his cruel smile, his betrayal, it was all still fresh in my mind. But something new had taken the place of the pain. A quiet, strong fire was growing inside me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't under their control. I wasn't the scared little girl they used to push around. Aunt Lauren had given me more than money. She had given me freedom. I pulled my coat tighter as the cold wind brushed my face. I had just inherited $20 million, but I stood alone in the middle of the city with no one I could truly call family. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I paused for a moment. There was one person who had always stood by me, my best friend Catherine. She had supported me through all the awful things my parents did. If anyone deserved to know what had just happened, it was her. Before I could dial her number, the heavy doors of the law office burst open behind me. I turned around just in time to see my father storming out, his face full of rage. "You listen to me, Danielle," he shouted, his voice cutting through the cold air. "You think this changes anything? You're still the same foolish little girl who doesn't understand how the world works." I clenched my fists but kept my voice calm. "No, Dad. I'm not foolish anymore. I see the truth now." He let out a cold, bitter laugh. "And what truth is that? That you're a man who lost everything because you were greedy." His jaw tightened. "You don't deserve that money." "Neither do you," I said, looking him straight in the eye. His nostrils flared, and he was about to yell something else when my mother came rushing out. She grabbed his arm. "Jacob, let's go. We need to think about what to do next." That was it. They had lost. And now, for the first time, they were feeling what it meant to face the results of their own choices. I turned and started walking down the sidewalk. My heart beat faster with every step. I was free. I got back to my apartment and my head was spinning. I sat on the couch and stared at the ceiling. $20 million. It didn't feel real. But I knew this wasn't just about money. Now I had power. I had a choice. I could let the money change me and become like my parents. Or I could use it to do something good. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Catherine. "Hey Danielle, I just heard what happened. Are you okay?" I smiled a little. Her message was full of care. "I think so. It's just a lot," I replied. "Well, yeah. You just inherited a fortune. So what are you going to do first? Buy a mansion? A yacht? Oh, maybe a personal chef?" I laughed and shook my head. "I don't know, Catherine. I don't think I want to go on a shopping spree." She was quiet for a second. Then she asked, "Then what do you want to do?" I leaned back and let out a slow breath. "I want to help people. Aunt Lauren was the only one who ever treated me kindly. I think I want to carry that forward." Catherine's voice softened. "I think she'd be proud of you." I smiled again. "Yeah, I think so too." The next morning, I woke up to a bunch of missed calls from my parents. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I called the lawyer. "Mr. Scott," I said when he picked up, "I want to start making some changes." He chuckled. "I had a feeling you would. What are you thinking?" I thought about all the times I felt alone. All the nights I cried because my own parents made me feel like I didn't matter. I want to start a foundation, I said clearly, for kids who come from toxic families. A place where they can feel safe, get help with school, and start over. There was a pause, and then I heard the smile in his voice. Miss Paul, I think that's a wonderful idea. I knew it wouldn't be long before my parents did something desperate. And I was right. That evening, there was a loud, frantic knock on my door. I didn't need to check the peephole. I already knew who it was. I waited for a moment, then opened the door. My mother stood there. Her face was pale, and her eyes were full of fear. My father stood behind her, looking just as lost. The pride and arrogance they once carried were gone. Danielle, my mother whispered, we need to talk. I crossed my arms. Oh, about what? How you threw me out. How you tried to take something that was never yours. My father clenched his jaw. We made a mistake. I let out a cold laugh. No. A mistake is spilling coffee. What you did was betray your own daughter. My mother grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin.
Please, Danielle.
We have nothing left. I stared at her, not moved. And whose fault is that? Tears filled her eyes. We're still your parents. No, I said, keeping my voice firm. You stopped being my parents the moment you threw me away. Then I saw it, the look in their eyes. They knew they had lost me for good. My father, the man who once seemed so strong and unshakable, now looked small, weak, and desperate. And it was all because of what they had done. I stepped back. Goodbye, Mom. Goodbye, Dad. And I closed the door. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind kept replaying everything. How fast my life had changed, the choices I had made. And then it hit me. I had power now. Not just money, but emotional power too. I could let them suffer, the way they let me suffer. Or I could do something they never did for me. I could show them mercy. The next morning I called my lawyer. I want to set up a trust, I said.
For whom? He asked.
I let out a sigh. For my parents. There was a long pause. Are you sure about that, Miss Paul? I nodded to myself.
Yes.
But only under one condition. And what's that? They get a small allowance. Just enough to live. But they can't control it. They can't touch the trust or try to take more. The lawyer chuckled. You really are your aunt's niece. I smiled quietly. Maybe I didn't do it because they deserved it. Maybe I did it because I was finally free. I deserved peace. And the best part was knowing that the same daughter they once called naive was now the only reason they weren't living on the street. That was the real revenge. Not by being cruel, not by making them suffer, but by being kind. Because kindness was something they could never understand. And that, to me, was true justice. After I set up the trust fund for my parents, I felt something I hadn't felt before, a sense of closure. I didn't forgive them. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But they couldn't hurt me anymore. That was enough. I sat in my new office, a small space I had rented for my foundation. It wasn't much. The walls were empty, and the furniture was simple. But the dream was real, and it was just beginning. Catherine sat across from me, smiling wide. I still can't believe you did that, she said. Did what? I asked. Set up a trust for them. After everything they did to you. She shook her head like she couldn't understand it. I would have let them suffer. I let out a breath and leaned back in my chair. That's just it, Catherine. If I let them suffer, I become like them. And I won't let them have that kind of control over me. She looked at me for a moment, then smiled. You're a better person than I am. I laughed. Or maybe just a smarter one. We both laughed, but deep down I knew why I really did it.
I didn't do it for them.
I did it for me. A few days passed. I focused completely on my foundation. I met with money experts, charity workers, and social workers. Everything was coming together. Then one afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. I hesitated before picking up. Hello, I said. A rough voice came through the phone, one I knew too well. Danielle. I froze. Dad. There was silence, then a deep breath. We need to meet. I let out a dry laugh. No, we don't. Please. I frowned. My father had never begged before. Even though I knew it wasn't a good idea, I agreed to meet him. We sat at a quiet cafe, far from the fancy places my parents used to visit. He looked different now, tired, worn out, smaller. He tapped his fingers on the table, staring at me like he was really seeing me for the first time. What do you want? I asked, not wasting time. He let out a sigh. Your mother, she's having a hard time with all this. She thinks maybe we can fix things. I tilted my head. And what do you think? His eyes darkened. I think you've made a mistake. I felt anger rise in my chest. Excuse me? You think you've won, Danielle, he said, his voice calm but cold. You think that just because you have money you're safe. I narrowed my eyes. Are you threatening me? He gave a small smirk. I'm just saying, money doesn't erase family. I leaned in, keeping my voice steady. You're right. It doesn't. But it does erase your control over me. His smirk faded. I stood up. This conversation is over. As I walked away, he called after me, his voice sharp. You may have everything now, Danielle. But don't forget where you came from. I didn't turn around. I just kept walking. I wasn't that scared little girl anymore. The days passed. I kept busy with my foundation, working hard. But my father's words stayed in the back of my mind, like a shadow I couldn't shake. Then one night, my phone rang. It was Catherine. Hey, she said carefully, I don't want to scare you, but I think you need to see this. She sent me a link. I opened it and froze. The headline read, Billionaire heiress Danielle Paul accused of stealing family fortune. My heart dropped. I clicked the article. My parents had gone to the media. They were saying I tricked my aunt, that I forced her to change the will, that I stole what should have been theirs. Catherine's voice came through gently. This is bad, Danielle. I clenched my fists. No, Catherine. This isn't just bad. This is war. I grabbed my phone and called Mr. Scott, my lawyer. I saw the article, Mr. Scott said before I could speak. Don't worry. It's all lies. They don't have any legal ground. That doesn't mean they won't ruin my name, I said quietly. He sighed. There's one thing we can do. We could sue them for defamation. I paused. Did I really want to take this to court and make it more public?
No.
I didn't want more drama. I just wanted it to end quietly. I have a better idea, I said. I decided to fight back using the truth. I contacted a trusted journalist, someone with a good name. I gave them every bit of proof I had. Messages, letters, recordings of my parents yelling at me, calling me names. I didn't want to destroy them. I just wanted people to know the truth. A week later, the article was published. The dark truth behind the Paul fortune, a daughter's fight for justice. The internet went wild. People turned against my parents right away. Their image was ruined. Just like that, the power they held over me and over everyone was gone. I met them one last time. They were sitting in a hotel lobby, both looking pale and nervous. My father glared at me. You've humiliated us. I crossed my arms.
No.
You humiliated yourselves. My mother started crying. We just wanted to use me. I cut in. To control me. They didn't say anything. I looked at them one last time and spoke calmly. I gave you a chance. I gave you a trust fund, a way to live. But if you ever try to hurt me again, I will take that away too. My father clenched his jaw, but he didn't argue. He knew it was over. I turned and walked away. And this time I didn't look back. With them out of my life, I finally put my full heart into what really mattered, my foundation. A few months later, we opened our first shelter. I stood in the front lobby, watching as young people came in, looking for a safe place. One girl, maybe 17, stood at the door, unsure. I walked over and gave her a kind smile. Hey, what's your name? She looked up, her eyes full of fear.
Catherine, she said softly.
You're safe here, Catherine, I said gently. Tears filled her eyes. Really? I nodded. Really? She burst into tears and cried on my shoulder. At that moment, I knew I had truly won, not because of the money, not because I got revenge, but because I chose to be better. The next few weeks moved fast. The foundation grew quickly, thanks to all the support we got after the article about my parents. Donations came in from everywhere. People reached out offering to help. I was so busy building something good that I barely thought about my parents anymore. I had moved on. But one morning, while I was reviewing plans for a second shelter, an email popped up. Subject: You won, but at what cost? I paused before opening it. It was from my father. You think you destroyed us. You didn't. You just made sure we'll never get back up. You turned us into the bad guys when we should have been the heroes. Enjoy your money, Danielle. But just know this, you're alone now. And money can't fix that. I stared at the screen. My chest felt tight. For a second, I almost believed him. Then I heard Catherine's voice behind me.
Hey.
You okay? I turned and saw her standing in the doorway, concern in her eyes. I let out a breath.
Yeah.
Just my dad again, trying to make me feel bad. She rolled her eyes. Classic. Let me guess, now he's acting like he's the victim? I gave a short laugh. Pretty much. She sat across from me and crossed her arms. You know he's wrong, right? You're not alone. I looked at her, really looked at her. Catherine had been more of a family to me than my parents ever were. I smiled. I know. And just like that, the heavy feeling in my chest went away. One afternoon, I was finishing some paperwork for the foundation's expansion when the receptionist called me. Miss Paul, someone's here to see you. I frowned. Who is it? There was a pause. She says she's your mother. My heart skipped a beat. After everything, why would she come now? I walked to the front lobby, my heels tapping on the floor. My mind was spinning. Then I saw her. Kelly Paul, once full of pride and control, now looked tired and worn out. Her clothes were neat, but old. Her face looked thinner than I remembered. Mom, I said, my voice colder than I meant. She turned to me, her eyes searching mine. Danielle. I crossed my arms. What do you want? She swallowed hard. Can we talk? I sighed and led her to a small meeting room. She sat down across from me, fidgeting with her hands, something I had never seen her do. Why are you here? I asked. She looked unsure. Then, in a soft voice, she whispered, I don't know who I am without the money. I blinked. That was not what I expected. She looked at me, and for the first time in my life, I saw something real in her eyes, regret. I spent so many years thinking money made me special, she said quietly. That power made me matter. She looked down at her hands. Now I have nothing and it's scary. I didn't say anything. I just let her talk. I never meant to hurt you, she said, her voice shaky. But I did. I was weak. I let your father treat you badly, and I never stopped him. And now, I don't even know how to make things right. I watched her carefully. It wasn't a full apology, but it was something. Mom, I said softly. What do you want from me? She looked up, eyes full of tears she hadn't let fall. I don't know. I just wanted to see you. I sighed. You can't undo the past. And I'm not going to pretend it never happened. She nodded, her lips shaking. But I continued. If you really want to change, you'll have to show it. Her breath caught. How? I leaned in a little. Do something good. Not for me. For someone else. Find a reason to live that isn't about money. If you can do that, maybe we can talk again someday. She wiped her eyes and nodded. Okay. As she left, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel like I had won. I felt something I didn't expect, a small spark of hope. A few months passed. My foundation was growing. We opened a second shelter, and our programs were helping more and more young people leave toxic homes and build new lives. Then one evening, Catherine rushed into my office, holding her phone. You're not going to believe this, she said, showing me the screen. I looked at the headline. Former socialite Kelly Paul spotted volunteering at local soup kitchen. I blinked in surprise. What? Catherine smirked. Looks like she actually listened to you. I let out a slow breath, unsure of how I felt. Had my mother really changed? I didn't know, but for the first time in my life, I was willing to find out. One rainy afternoon, I stood in front of Aunt Lauren's grave. I placed a bunch of white lilies on the stone and ran my fingers over her name. "Hey, Lauren," I whispered. "I hope I've made you proud." The wind blew gently through the trees, and for the first time in a long while, I felt calm. I had spent so much of my life searching for love in the wrong places. But now I understood. Family isn't always about blood. It's about the people who stay when everything falls apart. And I wasn't alone. I never really had been alone. A year later, my foundation had become something bigger, a movement. I stood on stage at our yearly gala, looking out at the people who now felt like family. Catherine, my team, the young people we had helped, they were all there. I took a deep breath and held the microphone. When I was younger, I said, I thought power meant having money. I thought status was everything. But now I know real power is kindness. The crowd clapped and cheered, but I wasn't doing it for attention. I was doing it because I had finally found my purpose. And as I stepped off that stage, I knew I had truly won, not with money, not with revenge, but by becoming the one thing they never wanted me to be.
Free.